Dear friends of the Tom Photo channel and the new viewers alike, let me talk about a really fun camera today, Fujifilm X-T10. This camera caught my attention because of its looks. If it had been much different, I would have not discovered it and I'd not be talking about it now. I judged a book by its cover and I was right. The X-T10 has been anything but let down. The more I've used it, the more I've grown to like it. I've also acquired its two brothers, the X-T20 and X-T30, and I've talked about all the three musketeers in parallel in a video post which is linked below. To me, this camera is a bullseye. It's capable, well-built, small and stylish. You can get it in black and silver. While I normally prefer black, this one looks better to me in classic silver. The small size and the classic looks alone were enough to sell me completely. However, what's under the hood is equally exquisite. The more I practice photography, the more I understand that size matters. I'm not nearly as likely to bring larger cameras on motorcycle rides or casual walks. So this small camera has allowed me to capture moments I would have otherwise missed. I like to couple it with the smallest Fuji lens I own, the XC 15 to 45 millimeters. It becomes so tiny that you can even do candid street photography without disturbing anyone. Just try this with a full-frame SLR and they'll call the cops on you. Fuji is famous for its JPEG color rendering, and I'll come back to that. And the wonderful turnable control buttons to give you the old-school photography experience. Do I love these buttons, large, high quality and precise. Just turn them and you'll immediately know what you're getting. The wonderful exposure compensation button gets most use. The middle one is the aperture priority switch / shutter speed control. Yes, Fuji has these two on the same button. May sound weird, but I've really grown to like it. At the other end of the panel, you have the photography mode button with functions like bracketing, etc. Note that the video is not controlled from this button, but instead the little red submerged button next to the shutter release. I'll come back to this as well. Underneath the shutter release is the on-off switch, convenient and nice. Clicks like a full metal switch should, and feels like it's going to last a million on-off cycles. One of my favorite switches is the tiny focusing control next to the lens. Single focusing, continuous focusing, manual focusing. This switch is precisely where your left hand likes to be when you shoot. In my case, it gets a lot of use. I often focus automatically using the S setting or the single focus setting and then switch to manual to make sure the focus stays where it should be. I do this because the system is not as good as in the X-T30, for example. When set at S, the focus should not move. However, with at least some lenses, the camera may still start to look for better focus. Maybe it's a particular combination of some settings and lenses that does it, but I do see it and I find it annoying. This never happens on my X-T30. Another way to lock focus is to use the focus lock button, of course, and this is next to the exposure lock button. This comes handy when shooting video because you don't want your exposure to jump around. The internal flash is hidden. Can you even tell where it is? You turn the tiny flash knob and the camera pops up the flash from out of nowhere, just like you pop open your car hood. The flash is hidden in the hump that SLRs use for housing the viewfinder. What a clever thing to do. You can house a flash and at the same time retain a classic design of the camera. Beautiful. In front and back you have dials that also serve as push buttons. Like some other buttons on this camera, these are programmable. You can change their function. The back screen moves out and up and down. Handy for high and low shots. It does not move to the side, and video loggers cannot use this screen to see themselves. But this is mostly a photographer's camera, not so much videographer's camera. The back screen is not touch sensitive. You get to the menu through the main button and then navigate with a 4-way pad. You also use this pad to select the focus area. Some may say that the old-fashioned way is a bit clumsy, but I don't see a problem. This is how the cameras used to be. Continuing on the back of the camera, we have electronic viewfinder, which to me is fully adequate. Nice and sharp, nothing to complain about. It has the proximity sensor. When you put your eye near it, the back screen switches off. The Q button is a nice thing to have. Essentially, it takes you to the summary screen where you can see the most important settings and you can change them from right there. You can control white balance and dynamic range between 100 and 400%. The latter allows you to get kind of HDR type results. Then you can choose the photo size and if you want RAW file or not. You can also modify the curve of your image by changing the highlight and shadow settings. Then there is also color, sharpening, and noise reduction settings. These apply to JPEG, not the RAW file. Don't worry about getting something wrong here. Even if you shoot black and white but later need color, you're fine if you also produce the RAW file. Speaking of RAW file, the 23.6mm x 15.6mm X-Trans CMOS 2 sensor that this camera has is capable of giving you very deep RAW files. The X-Trans is a bit different technology, and make sure that your RAW file editor can handle it. I use RAW Therapy. Please see link down below for my tutorial. And this works wonderfully with the X-T10 files. Fuji also offers its own X-RAW Studio downloadable from Fuji website. Video is something that you may find old-fashioned. It only goes to HD. You do have the external microphone port on the side. The video itself is fully usable and really nice for recording vacation memories. Compared to the higher-end cameras, it's not as detailed. The method of video recording involves line skipping, and so you don't get super detailed results. Probably the worst thing about video is the little red button you have to press to start video recording. It is submerged, and I have to press it several times to start the video. This is not optimal, and the video does not have its own menu. You shoot with the same settings as your photo settings. The camera takes the standard Fujifilm batteries and they last for 300 or so images in my hand. I've heard people complain about the batteries, but I do not agree here. Pretty good, I'd say. What else is visible from the outside? There's a switch that turns the camera into a point and shoot in one simple click. This is very handy when you quickly have to hand the camera to a less knowledgeable person or when you don't have time to think about the setting because a rare bird just landed in front of you. So this is pretty smart stuff. What else is really smart about Fuji is that it offers hardware upgrades via its website. Just download the file based on your lens or camera name, put it on the SD card, and have the camera do the upgrade. Fuji is so considerate to continue supporting its older camera models to make sure they align with the newer lenses, for example. What this camera does the best is the good old photography. Get prepared because the image quality will blow you away. I sometimes smile to myself when I see pictures out of this camera. Although this camera body does not house any image stabilization, many lenses used with this camera have that, and it works beautifully. Fuji lenses are so sharp that the outcome is simply beautiful. The main lens I have in front of my X-T10 these days is the Fuji 15 to 45mm or the Fuji 35mm f1.4 prime lens. Please see the link to my Fuji lens reviews below. If you want to use the JPEGs rather than shooting RAW file, the Fujifilm is your system, and the X-T10 is among the best options. The color rendering is just wonderful. I argue that the X-T10 renders more interesting colors than some of the following models. The standard color mode is the best all-around option that I find using more than the others. I think the X10, which is one of my favorite cameras of all time, please see the link below, is the main competitor of the X-T10 in that department. You need to experience the Fuji JPEGs to know what I'm talking about. With Fuji, I often find that JPEG is all I need. Fuji menu is not the most logical out there. I'm a huge fan of Fuji, but I admit that Nikon's menu, for example, can be more logical. To this day, I start looking through the menu from the beginning when I want to find something, and at times I get frustrated. You have a choice between mechanical and completely quiet electronic shutter. You can use the grids and electronic level to help you compose. There is focus peaking to assist with manual focusing. You see colored dots to appear and disappear as you manually focus. There is much more about this camera. I encourage you to ask me questions about this camera in the comments. I always do my best to give you thoughtful answers and help you. If you would like to see sample images I've taken with my X-T10, I invite you to watch a special video that I have made for this. Please see the link below. And I am soon going to post a video on how I use Fuji X-T10 for time-lapse photography. Is there anything I don't like about this camera? You always find something if you look close enough. The camera could be too small for large hands. You can buy a special handle frame to make the grab better. This frame also protects the bottom and the corners of the camera against scratches and damage. And this is needed. The problem with this camera is that the bottom is made of the same material and the same color as the rest of the camera, but this is not very scratch resistant. So the bottom of the camera may develop scratches rather fast, just from carefully placing your camera on the table enough times. This is my most negative thing to say about the X-T10. I'd like to see the bottom made of something more durable. I really hate scratches. My cameras also have to be easy on the eye. Weird me. I think this is about it when it comes to problems. I could mention a somewhat slow focusing, but then again, this is not a new camera model. Why complain? I could lament that it does not have image stabilization or weather resistance, but that would be unfair. Just look at its price. So talking about problems regarding this small marvel is mostly just whining. To summarize, I cannot imagine why one would not love this camera. It's so much fun and delivers breathtaking images. And all this in a small and affordable package that comes with a ton of style. What's not to love? Another big question. Is it worth buying in 2022? I have a big fat yes for you. If you have more questions about this camera, drop me a line in the comments. If you like this video, please consider pressing the subscribe button. This means a lot to me. Thanks so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in my future and past videos where I talk about photography related matters. Have a great day.